Yeah.
Dear participants and Professor S.P. Roy, sir, you are welcome to participate in this session on the ethnography, digital ethnography. And before we go digital, we will find out what ethnography is and how to actually on the ground. We go to field work. How do we do? And what are the things exactly we want to discover about the people understudying, the society, culture, which we target to examine, study. What exactly we want to discover about that people group or particular that culture. So in that given environment. So regarding that, I want to give some introductory presentation to have a broader scope of what exactly ethnographers do and why they do kind of thing. So let me share my screen. So the topic of the present presentation of mine is using a human competency framework to discover the worldview of a society and culture which we want to study. So, and as we know, what is ethnography and what we are trying to do exactly? That is the primary question to ponder upon, to reflect. So I want to understand the world from your point of view. So we want to find out the natives' point of view. How do they see the world? And that we want to find out. And I want to know what you know in the way you know it. So this is epistemological question. What is the knowledge of the people under study? How do they get that knowledge that we want to know as ethnographers? And I want to understand the meaning of your experience. So the experiences plays a crucial role because the existing beliefs and the ongoing experiences, there sometimes there might be troubling gaps. So based on the experiences, the inner questioning starts. Actually, I believe this, but the experiences say something else. So what should I do now? So they doubt their beliefs when they have different experiences. When the beliefs and experiences are contradicting with each other, so they do raise questions to seek meanings. In that process, experiences, their experiences empower them to even change their beliefs because their experiences inform different thing, but their beliefs give them a different meaning. So clash of meanings and clash of belief and experiences. This is a very interesting phenomenon. An ethnographer actually wants to look into. So I want to understand the meaning of your experiences. So what are the meanings, set of meanings that you derive from your experiences? That is very important. For the ethnographer to discover the local people's meanings supplied by their existing belief and created by their ongoing experiences. If there is a troubling gap or a clash in the experiences and the beliefs, so how do they cope up with that kind of situation? Inner struggle and to find the meaning based on their new experiences. That is very interesting for ethnographer to have a discussion with the local people and discover what's going on their minds, on their emotions, and their judgments, means taking this decision to forsake the existing or adopting something new, which they never have before in their kind of thing. So very interesting. I want to walk in your shoes. In their day-to-day life, how do they, means their walk, means their behavior, how do they, I want to walk in your shoes, means in their day-to-day life situations, how do they do what they do, and how do they see what they see, how do they derive at the decisions, the decisions they make. So all those things is a overarching statement. So another important point is I want to feel things as you feel them. This is this comes under affective domain kind of thing. So we want to understand their mind, their thought process, their cognitive domain, and we want to understand their experiences, their feelings, their meanings. So to construct so what exactly they hold about their world. So as anthropologists, and we are strong in ethnography and field work and participant observation. When we go to field, what we want to observe, or what we want to participate in, and what we want to note down, and what we want to write about the culture and the behavior, the society, and all those things. So these are the 6 important points I want to bring to your notice. I want to understand the world from your point of view, that is native's point of view. I want to know what you know in the way you know it. I want to understand the meaning of your experience. I want to walk in your shoes. I want to feel the things as you feel them. And I want to explain things as you explain them. So finally, the explanation part. We anthropologists, we describe, ethnographers, so we describe and explain things. We describe what is going on in the given culture, in the given environment, in the context and specific explanations we want to give. At the same time, but how do the local people explain the incidents or accidents or events or whatever the things that are ongoing in their life experiences? So how do the local people explain the way they explain? And those things we want to really write about their culture. So at the end, what exactly we want to figure out by doing all these things, to understand the world from the native's point of view, and to know that the local people know in the way the local people know it, and to understand the meaning of the local people's experience, to walk in the local people's shoe, and to feel the things as they feel them, and to explain things as they explain. So finally, what we want to figure out, why we do this kind of techniques or strategies, what exactly we are trying to do. That is where the whole presentation goes. So what exactly we are trying to discover about the people under study. So this is the time for interaction. Just few minutes, if anybody is ready to share your idea, what exactly we want to figure out by doing all these things, what we want to figure out. That is the question. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Pera?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. is there anybody to share their opinions? Please go ahead.
If nobody is going to talk, then I will say one or two sentences.
Please,
I think other colleague should tell. Soma Rani is there, Suresh is there. I do not know the name of the other person whose identity is FEDC 68D8. I don't know. Who are they?
I encourage you to please share your ideas by approaching people with this kind of mindset. I want to understand the world from your point of view, and I want to know what you know in the way you know it. I want to understand the meaning of your experience. I want to walk in your shoes. I want to feel things as you feel them. I want to explain things as you explain them. By doing all these things, what exactly we want to figure out, construct, what exactly we are trying to construct about the given culture and the given environment. That is the question.
Yeah, that's a very scientific, Dr. Gadde, that whenever you want to start ethnography, the first point is understanding the worldview. That is the first point. And for understanding the worldview, we have to know the methods of understanding the worldview. And that will be your very important contribution. If you can develop a method for understanding the worldview of the community. So if you search, I don't know, I have seen ever about methodology for understanding the worldview of the community. There are many papers. What is worldview? How people think about it. But how to know the worldview of the community? If you ask me, what is your worldview? I don't know what you want to know.
Exactly.
Just if I ask Suresh, Suresh, what is your worldview? Can you say what is your worldview? Or if I ask Soma Rani, can Soma Rani tell me what is your worldview? Please, let's talk, Suresh.
Sir. Hello.
अगर आपसे कोई पूछे, what is your worldview?
Hello.
What you will say?
Sir, I think the worldview is the people's.
What is your worldview?
The belief and how. What is the perception of our life? Hello.
Yes, we are able to hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. How the people live and their belief system. For example, in the rural or in the a tribal society, they are.
I think there's a problem in sounds. Voice is breaking. Let us think very practical question. If I go to study a community, maybe tribal or non-tribal, and I want to know the worldview of the community. So how would I know the worldview of the community? I give example. If I want to know.
Sir.
Yes, you're saying something? Anybody was saying something?
Yes,
so
Kasim, please go
there
ahead.
There has to be question. For example, if you want to know from a community about the worldview in the context of what? So that has to be clear. And in order to know that, what kind of questions will be there? And when the answers will be coming, how do we document the answer and try to know whether these answers are about the worldview or something else. So this is the issue of method. And I'm very glad, rather very happy to see the effort of Dr. Gadde that the first thing starts with the worldview. Yes, you are very right. We have to understand the worldview of the community also first. But how to know the worldview?
Yeah.
And what worldview in the context of what? So first we have to know what is worldview. We have to define what is worldview. And then how to know the worldview. So the steps should be, what is worldview? And questions will be, next, how to know the worldview. Next will be, how we relate the answer with our objective of worldview. These three steps. Yeah.
So thank you, sir. I had the opportunity of serving as the principal investigator for a national research project. So we have studied 23 people groups, ethnic groups, to discover their worldview. So in that process, when I was traveling and I have trained some people and have given them some tools to discover the worldview of the local people. So I visited fields and in the Northeast and also in the different Central India and South India. So finally, I came up with an understanding what exactly the anthropological understanding of the worldview, at the same time, my field study and exposure and training, travels and interaction and interviews. So based on that, I have developed a framework to understand the worldview of the local people, given culture, based on this human competency framework to understand the worldview of a given ethnic group. So that is the framework that I have developed. So before I go to that, let us see some anthropologists, famous anthropologists, how they have defined the worldview. According to Levi-Strauss, the universality of human nature expressed in the generic unconscious. This unconscious is thus the foundation of the possibility of objective knowledge of human nature. And it is only a scientific approach to humanity that can reveal the true and objective foundation of human existence. So we anthropologists, we try to understand the human nature. What are the principles that guide human nature? What are the principles of human acquisition? How do people acquire the competencies required for not only for their survival, but also for their flourishment? So what are the competencies? How do they figure out the required competencies to cope up with the challenging situations in the environment, in the society, in the neighborhood, within the family, within the personal life? So how do they figure out the exact required competencies? Then how do they acquire the required competencies? That is the interesting thing, because we study humans holistically and we try to understand the human nature and the guiding principles of human nature, and for their success, for their happiness, for their well-being, for their common good and collective flourishment. What are the principles? What are the competencies that are operating or that are acquired in the process of human struggle for existence and flourishment? So here, Levi-Strauss, the famous anthropologist, he comes up with an understanding and explanation how this entire process is. He is trying to pin down in few words what exactly happens, kind of thing. So the universality of human nature expressed in the generic unconscious. This unconscious is thus the foundation of the possibility of objective knowledge of human nature. And it is only a scientific approach to humanity that can reveal the true and objective foundation of human existence. What is this unconscious stuff he is talking about? That is the question. So Levi-Strauss is trying to put together in his own words what is exactly worldview. So the unconscious thing, like an iceberg. So visible part, everybody knows, material culture, whatever the existing things, dress and food and habits, all these things. But what is the unconscious things that control the conscious or visible things? That is where Levi-Strauss is trying to take us to find out the unconscious stuff, the substance that is there at the back of their minds, in the deep of their lives, the hidden the schemata or the structures, the deep structure. So those things he is trying to point us to, so that that's where the objective knowledge of their human nature can be understood, according to Levi-Strauss. Then another anthropologist, Edward T. Hall, there is, according to him, the worldview is, there is an underlying hidden level of culture that is highly patterned, a set of unspoken, implicit rules of behavior and thought that controls everything we do. This hidden cultural grammar defines the way in which people view the world, determines their values, establishes their basic tempo and rhythms of life. See, you see how deeply he understands the worldview that controls. There's a hidden cultural grammar, he says, and which govern the values, determines the values and establish the basic tempo and rhythms of life. It means the music of life is determined by the hidden cultural grammar. That cultural grammar, hidden cultural grammar, controls everything people do. The implicit rules of behavior. Some rules are explicit, but some the culture is implicit. The worldview is implicit. So, which is the culture, this underlying hidden level of culture that is highly patterned, a set of unspoken, implicit rules of behavior. Just a few minutes before Professor S.B. Rai sir was telling, if you go to people and ask them, what is your worldview? They cannot explain, they cannot describe, because it is unspoken, because it is implicit. And you have to figure out when you see them, when you interact with them. So, and the thought that controls everything. So what is that hidden cultural grammar? That's where the ethnographer, the trained anthropologist and other non-anthropology background people, what is the major difference is that we try to discover the worldview of a given ethnic group or a given society or culture. So once we tap and map that hidden cultural grammar, the worldview, then we understand, and for us to describe and explain things and the way they do and how they do and all those things will be easier. So that's why instead of moving in directly into the digital ethnography and the principles and practice, let me give the basic foundation stuff that is required, the business of an ethnographer, or the ultimate end task, the final big picture, what exactly an ethnographer wants to figure out during his study. So how to figure out, and what are the characteristics, what are the functions and characteristics of a worldview? How do worldviews form? How do worldviews change? As cultures are continuously changing, and how do changes happen at the worldview level? Those things are also very interesting things to ethnographers. So, according to Edward T. Hall, he says one of the principal characteristics of primary level culture is that it is particularly resistant to manipulative attempts to change it from the outside. When outsiders are trying to change the culture and manipulate things, what happens, he explains. The rules may be violated or bent, but people are fully aware that something wrong has occurred. Deep at the unconscious level, they realize something wrong occurred. That is the kind of understanding he wants to bring. In the meantime, the rules remain intact and change according to the internal dynamic of all their own. So what he wants to say, let me repeat his statement on the worldview, how the worldview functions. One of the principal characteristics of the primary level culture is that it is particularly resistant to manipulative attempts to change it from the outside. The rules may be violated or bent, but people are fully aware that something wrong has occurred. In the meantime, the rules remain intact and change according to the internal dynamic of all their own. So what is that internal dynamic? How, even though outsiders intrude to impose some changes on the existing culture, how do the internal dynamic keep it intact and put together again the same meanings? So that is what how the excellent function of worldview he's trying to explain here. So Robert Redfield, according to Robert Redfield, the worldview he tries to explain, that outlook upon the universe that is characteristic of people. It is the picture the members of the society. It is the picture of the members of the society have of the properties and characters upon their stage of function. Worldview attends specifically to the way a man in a particular society sees himself in relation to all else. It is that organization of idea which answers to a man the questions, where I am, among what do I move, what are my relations to these things. It is, in short, a man's idea of the universe. So Robert Redfield's excellent explanation of the worldview, which guide people and their behavior and their image of others and the image of the world and their self-image, the image of themselves, the image of the society around, the image of the environment around in which he lives, so among whom he moved, all those things, the fundamental philosophical questions, where I am, among what do I move, what are my relations to these things, the questions goes on, but he comes up, it is in short, a man's idea of the universe. So worldview gives the idea of how to organize his life. So this is where we need to look into things. So Clifford Geertz, according to him, the worldview is, he explains, religious belief and ritual confront and mutually confirm one another. The ethos is made intellectually reasonable by being shown to represent a way of life implied by the actual state of affairs which the worldview describes. And the worldview is made emotionally acceptable by being presented as an image of an actual state of affairs of which such a way of life is an authentic expression. So he comes up with how the worldview describes and gives the authenticity as a person in the society and the code of expression, how to behave, and what are the mutually confronting things, and what are the ethos, and all those things. A way of life compiled, a way of life implied by the actual state of affairs, which the worldview describes. And the worldview is made emotionally acceptable by being presented as an image of an actual state of affairs, of which such a way of life is an authentic expression. So worldview gives the authenticity for the person or the individual of the particular culture, what kind of behavior is authorized, what is not authorized, and whether it is a religious belief or ritual. Sometimes they confront, at the same time they mutually confirm, and the ethos made intellectually reasonable. Sometimes when ethos are not reasonable, when ethos becomes not reasonable for the local individual, that's where the worldview crisis happens. But generally, the worldview prescribes the ethos and the rituals, the beliefs, and the authentic expression of behavior and the code of conduct. All these things are prescribed and given, justified by the worldview of people. So according to Charles Kraft, an American anthropologist, he says, a worldview is seen as lying at the heart of every cultural entity, whether a culture or subculture or academic discipline, social class, religious, political, or economic organization, or any similar grouping with a distinctive value system. So it gives the at the heart of the academic discipline or subculture, culture, or a social class, religion, at the heart of the political behavior or economic organization, or political organization, at the core, and what are the heart of the issue, that's what a worldview brings up, comes out and regulates and determines and governs. That's where worldview. So the worldview of the cultural entity is seen as both the repository and the patterning in terms of which people generate the conceptual models through which they perceive of and interact with reality. So when they exposed to the happenings, and when they exposed to the festivals, when they exposed to the experiences, what is the reality they get exposed, and how. So worldview comes in and prescribes the ways in which they need to perceive the reality. And worldview prescribes the ways in which how to interact with the reality. You see, the reality is different, and the worldview prescribes the ways of perception, the ways of interaction. That means the worldview controls everything. That is interesting for an ethnographer. So what are the ways of their perceptions? What are the ways of their interactions with the reality? How their perceptions and their interactions are governed, controlled, determined, altered by the worldview they keep. So that's why finally we come up with some functions of the worldview. What are the functions of the worldview? The number one function, worldview provides us with the cognitive foundations on which to build our systems of explanation, supplying a rational justification for belief in these systems. Provides us with a model or a map of reality by structuring our perceptions of reality. You see, so the worldview provides us with the cognitive foundations. Cognitive means the ways of thinking. So how the worldview prescribes to the people group. For example, if a newly born babe, as he grows, so in the process of socialization, and the existing worldview of the family, of the local given culture, determines and controls and helps him what are the ways it prescribes. The existing worldview prescribes him what are the ways. Cognitive foundation means the ways of thinking. What are the logics of your thinking, or the habits of thinking? So your intellectual, the reasoning or thinking process is governed by the prescribed by the worldview. So the number one function of the worldview is it provides us with the cognitive foundations on which to build our systems of explanation or reasoning, supplying the rational justification for belief in these systems, provides us with a model or map of reality by structuring our perceptions of reality. See, the importance of the worldview, what exactly the ethnographer wants to discover is the worldview and its function. How do it function in the local given cultural social context? The second function is it gives us emotional security, buttresses our fundamental beliefs with emotional reinforcements so that they are not easily destroyed. So Professor Paul Hebert, he also served in the Osmania University, Hyderabad, and he also served in the Washington University. So he wrote academic textbooks on culture. So excellent. He comes up with these two functions. And also, third function of the worldview, it validates our deepest cultural norms, which we use to evaluate our experiences and choose courses of action, provides us with a map of reality and also serves as a map for guiding our lives. It validates our deepest cultural norms, which we use to evaluate our experiences. So he brings up the evaluative domain of the worldview, how their experiences are evaluated, and choose courses of action, provides us with a map of reality and also serves as a map for guiding our lives. The fourth function of worldview is it integrates our culture, organizes our ideas, feelings, and values according to a single overall design. That is the massive, massive function of the worldview, you see. It integrates our culture. In other words, organizes our ideas, feelings, and values into a single overall design. So the fifth function of the worldview, it monitors cultural change to select ideas, behaviors, and products that fit our culture and reject those that do not. To reinterpret those we adapt so that they fit our overall cultural pattern. So so for rejecting the things and for adopting things, the worldview serves as the master regulator and controller. And if at all we adapt how the overall cultural pattern, where do it fit into? All those things are defined, regulated, determined, governed by the existing worldview of the given society and culture. So we want to try to figure out the worldview, and till now we have seen some explanations. Anthropologists, how do they perceive a worldview, and what are the functions of the worldview, what are the characteristics of the worldview. Those things we have seen.
Yes, that's a very good component of the worldview we have explained. Very good. Dr. Gadde, are you talking? We are unable to hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
So am I able to, am I audible to you now?
Yes. Now we can hear.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Thank you, sir. So the worldview in relation to cultural patterning and cultural performance, we started our journey with the questions, how to figure out the worldview of the local people, and what are the questions that we want to ask, so that in our conversation, how to lead the local the participants or the people whom we have interviewed. So those people, how to guide them, how to guide the conversation in order to figure out their worldview. So that was the question, how to discover the worldview of the people. So to assist that question, and how different anthropologists of good reputation came forward and gave frameworks to understand how culture functions and how worldview forms and how worldview really controls things, and how to discover the worldview of a people group, in the cultural patterning and the cultural performance. These are the categories. Worldview as the organizer of the conceptualization, worldview as a governor of application of concepts. So the Professor Charles Kraft, he comes up with this framework. So Professor Paul Hebert's model of worldview, he comes up with a cognitive domain and affective domain and evaluative domain. So these are the three domains he comes up. At the cognitive level, the ways of thinking. At the affective level, the ways of feeling. At the evaluative level domain, making judgments, taking decisions, deciding whether it is true or whether it is good or bad. Should we go for it or should we reject it? Those are the evaluative domain. So he comes up with the three domains: cognitive domain, affective domain, and evaluative domain. So these are the three domains, and based on this framework, he explains how social institutions function, economic organization, social organization, religious organization, how the law of the land, the law of the society, the political organization, technology, and aesthetics, what is beautiful, what is ugly, what is wonderful, kind of thing. Those things are how do the cognitive, affective, and evaluative domains interact with each other and together constitute the worldview, and how it interacts with the law of the land, how do it interacts with the religion, social organization, all those things. So he explains through this model of the worldview. Professor Paul Hebert, he says, to state the worldview as an anthropological term, the foundational cognitive, affective, and evaluative assumptions and frameworks a group of people makes about the nature of reality, which they use to order their lives. So through this framework, and he comes up with the definition of the worldview. The worldview as an anthropological term, he defines the foundational cognitive, affective, and evaluative assumptions and frameworks a group of people makes about the nature of reality which they use to order their lives. Yeah, according to the Edward T. Hall, we have already seen his definition, but the background picture gives the meaning to what he says. There is an underlying hidden level of culture that is highly patterned, a set of unspoken, implicit rules of behavior and a thought that controls everything we do. This hidden cultural grammar defines the way in which people view the world, determines their values, and establishes their basic tempo and rhythms of life. So, according to Professor Clifford Bridge, worldview is a people's picture of the way things in sheer actuality are. Their concept of nature, of self, of society, it contains their most comprehensive ideas of order. So, according to Clifford Bridge, a very comprehensive definition, worldview is a people's picture of the way things in sheer actuality are, their concept of nature, their concept of self, their concept of society. It contains their most comprehensive ideas of order. So, yeah. So Levi-Strauss definition also gives this iceberg concept, how the visible part of iceberg and the invisible part, and how the invisible part dominates. And if we are unaware of the invisible part of the iceberg, how the devastating experience happens. So that invisible part in our context is worldview. So Levi-Strauss explanation, the universality of human nature expressed in the generic unconscious. This unconscious is thus the foundation of the possibility of objective knowledge of human nature. And it is only a scientific approach to humanity that can reveal the true and objective function of human existence. Yes. So, based on my observations in my field work of studying 23 people groups to different experiences I had, based on that, I have developed some understanding to how to understand the worldview, how to figure out the worldview of the given cultural context. So, to answer that question, my findings I present here. People are seeking meanings. So every person, even a people group, is consciously or subconsciously are having inner thirsting, craving, striving, thriving, and driving factors that make people realize their discomforts, search for solutions, and seek meanings to connect with the ultimate reality called the truth. So people are, all the disciplines in our universities, all the courses that universities offer, they are searching for the truth in their particular discipline, about that particular the area of specialization. So in human search for truth, what exactly people are trying is people are seeking meanings that connect them with the truth. So every person, even people group, is consciously or subconsciously are having inner thirsting, craving, striving, thriving, and driving factors that make people realize their discomforts, search for solutions, and seeking meanings to connect with the ultimate reality called the truth. So this inner thirst and cravings and strivings and driving factors. These factors are very responsible thing. Ethnographer is curious to know what are the craving local people are craving for. What are their thirst, inner thirst? What exactly to figure out the inner thirst of the given people group that we study, and what are their cravings? What are they craving for? What are they striving for? What are they thriving for? What are the driving factors responsible for all these things they do? And those things, and also finally, how do they figure out their discomforts? what are the discomforts, unspoken and struggling, and also what are their ways of searching for solutions, and what are their ways of seeking their meanings, to where do they search the solution, for who are the people they connect or they contact for solutions, what are the ways they get to the solutions, where do they who are the meaning givers, for these kind of meaning seekers, and how do they connect with the truth, and this ongoing process, which is hidden, which is that's where we need to get deeper and dig deeper, and so that we might find out the inner ongoing processes of discovering the truth. If you go to each discipline, what are the truth that we want to discover, that we want to articulate? Each discipline has its own specialized area of truth. Uh, but anthropologists trying to discover the truth about human origins and holistic human nature and human the functions, and how do they do what they do. So we want to try to figure out the truth about the worldview, how it functions, what are its characteristics, and how it is formulated, how, if at all, worldviews changed, how do the worldviews change. These are the core issues an ethnographer is very interested to look into. Another observation of mine is some people are using acquired competencies. Some people go by the tradition, but whereas some people, the trendsetters, they try to adopt new things, which is not part of their culture, but the process of finding the truth or search for meaning, people acquire some required competencies to overcome their discomforts. So some people are using acquired competencies, and also majority of the people they also acquire in the process of socialization and all these things. But majority of the people go by tradition. They compromise with the tradition, whereas some people they acquire the required competence and they use it, they apply it. That is interesting. Some people use their acquired competencies to ask ultimate questions, seek meanings, and take countless journeys to find answers. In that process, they interact with people, events, environment, and cultures, and they try to make or unmake their worldviews based on the identified gaps between their concepts of reality, set of experiences with the reality, and peoples use their acquired resources of reflection, evaluation, realization, conviction, motivation, aspirations, and decisions, and conscience to take the needed action. So this is very important statement, how people figure out things. So some people use their acquired competences to ask ultimate questions, whereas some people, they compromise, they never express their feelings, they never ask straightforward questions to question the existing confusion or chaos or conflicts or crisis. They never express, but some people, they use their acquired competencies to ask the ultimate questions, meaningful questions. They frame meaningful questions, they ask and seek meanings, and take countless journeys to find answers. And in that process, they interact with people, interact with the events, interact with the environment and cultures, and they try to make or unmake their worldview based on based on the identified gaps between their concepts of reality and sets of experiences. You see, they figure out the gap. My existing belief system, the worldview system says this, but the actual experiences says different things altogether. So there's a troubling gap exists in between. So so to get connected with the reality is different, but the reality, the interpretation of the reality interpreted given by the worldview is different, but the actual experiences with the reality is altogether different. And the troubling gaps, the worldview crisis came into existence in that everybody at some time they have a worldview crisis deep inside, but some people articulate in the form of meaningful questions. They seek meanings. They sometimes give meanings, and they set different standards altogether. And the cultural clash and adjustment problems they face. They're even ready to sacrifice their lives for the convictions they have. So because they're mavericks, they're courageous, they're able to identify their discomforts, they're able to articulate their discomfort, they ask questions. That's where they communicate message, they communicate the discomfort, they find out solutions, they point people to different direction. How the worldviews change, that is our question. So some people are using acquired competencies to frame the right questions, to ask in the right context, and to find the right meanings they are searching for. And they take countless journeys, they have countless discussions, and finally they try to bridge the gap between the existing realities given by the experiences and the interpretation of reality given by prescribed by the worldview. So when worldview crisis happens, and these kind of people use their acquired competencies, and also people use their acquired resources of reflection and evaluation and realization and conviction and motivation, aspirations and decisions and conscience to take the needed action. This is the third observation of mine is people are giving meanings. So in that process, people, when they confront with the discomforts and they raise questions, and people are at the, for example, let me read my observation. A person or people's very doings and beings are shaped and influenced by how they cultivate their acquired capability, resources of adapting, operating, strategizing, and sustaining and service delivery competencies to know things and to do things consciously or subconsciously, and constructively or destructively at the deep of the reflective and conscientious domain of their worldview. So at the deep of their reflective and conscientious domain, this is the new domain I come up with in the worldview framework, which I have developed. So people are giving meaning givers also. At some point, people are meaning seekers. And at some other point, people are meaning subscribers given by the local cultural prescribed worldview. The existing worldview gives them meanings, so they subscribe to it. When they have troubling gaps between the experiences with the reality and the interpretations of the reality, when they find troubling gaps, they become meaning seekers. At some point, they become meaning givers. So a person or people group, very doings and beings are shaped and influenced by how they cultivate their acquired capability resources. That means competencies, adapting competencies, operating competencies, strategizing competencies, sustaining competencies, service delivery competencies, to know things and to do things consciously or subconsciously, and constructively or destructively, whether it is for constructive purpose or for the destructive purpose, at the deep of the reflective and conscientious domain of their worldview. So this is another, people are giving meanings as well. People are waiting for right experiences. They're people at the core of their worldview, they are looking for right experiences. So we are trying to figure out the human nature, the principles that guide the human nature, trying to understand how worldviews are formed or worldviews are changed. And those things we are trying to find out the answers. When we, as ethnographers and anthropologists, when we look at the people group, so my observation, people are waiting for the right experiences. It is interesting to note that people create, develop, formulate, design, execute, propagate, and subscribe, and even ready to forsake the beliefs, attitudes, norms, values, and code of conduct based on their personal and collective experiences with the reality. Yes. So worldviews are inner core, a strong, inner solid core that governs, that regulates, that determines the everything of human lifestyle, and the way people think, the habits of thinking, the way people feel, the habits of their emotions, the way people judge, the habits of their evaluation. All those habits patterns are controlled, regulated, and formulated, prescribed by the existing worldview of a people group. But whereas interesting observation is, it is interesting to note that people create altogether new and develop, formulate, and design, and execute, propagate, subscribe, and even ready to forsake beliefs, attitudes, norms, values, and code of conduct based on their personal and collective experiences with the reality. So when the worldview crisis happens, what the worldview is interpreting the reality, what actually their experiences are informing about the reality, when there is a gap existing between these interpretation of the worldviews, way of interpreting the reality, and the experiential explanation of the reality. When then the worldview crisis happens, then people look for, waiting for right experiences and right interpretations, and that's where they become meaning seekers. That's where they become aware of their discomfort. That's where they become meaning givers, the designers, the formulators, the developers, the creators of new meanings, new concepts, and even they're ready to forsake the existing the traditional beliefs and all those things. They subscribe new things. That's how worldview change happens. That's how the cultural changes happens. So our fundamental question, where to discover the worldview of a people group? How do local people see hunger, disease? What is their explanation of hunger, disease, pain, fears, isolation, deprivation, uncertainty, insecurity, contingencies, crises, conflicts, vulnerabilities, struggle, suppression, exploitation, inequalities, injustice, poverty, harassment, slavery, debt bondage, corruption, humiliation, failures, discomforts, disparities, calamities, brokenness, suffering, various forms of evil, superstitions, lies, loneliness, depression, oppression, degradation, danger, hopelessness, helplessness, death and destruction, wars, and so on. Goes on, the list goes on. So in the face of all these social and cultural realities, the people, the individuals, and also the ethnic groups as a collective, in their collective spaces, they have questions. Why we should suffer hunger? What is the reason for disease? And already the existing worldview gives the meaning and the order and the interpretation for all these list of things that create inconvenience for them. But at the same time, they are meaning givers in the local worldview. The elders, priests, diviners, teachers, academicians, philosophers, they try to figure out the meaning for each problem, and they want to pass it on. They have their own ways of mechanism of internalizing the meanings that they discover, they pass, and it goes on. Whereas myths, taboos, festivals, customs, rituals, sacrifices, beliefs, values, philosophies, ideologies, and doctrines, these things give explanations for the ongoing problems which I have just listed. And the persuaders, meaning keepers, and institutions and organizations and networks. So there are meaning givers, and the meanings are given in the form of myths and taboos and festivals and customs, rituals, sacrifices, and philosophies, ideologies, and doctrines and beliefs. And these persuaders, meaning keepers, are there in their given culture. The institutions, organizations, governments, they keep these meanings given by these things. At the same time, tradition fanatics are also, we can find tradition fanatics and executors and prosecutors and the persecutors. If you violate the tradition because of the inner worldview crisis, there is the different institutions which persecute people, prosecute people, or tradition fanatics we call. Um, so who are the meaning givers? What are the ways the meanings are given in a particular culture or worldview? How the meanings are expressed? What are the different forms? And who are the meaning keepers? What are the institutions they have to keep the given meanings? What are the penal, means the punishing system? How if the meanings are violated, what are the have sanctions they have? What are the ways of punishing people to provide the order in the given culture? So this image, I think, gives a broader understanding how to where to discover the worldview kind of thing. So how meaning seeking and meaning making, the making and unmaking of the worldview, how the existing worldview came into existence, and how the unmaking of the existing worldview and give ways to find out the different new components of the worldview, accommodated new meanings and new technologies, and how those things are introduced and accommodated, all these things. So meaning seekers are there, a group of people. What are the meaning seeking? What are the meanings they are searching? What are the discomforts they have? And what kind of meanings they are making? And what are their ideas? So what are the theories and the science and new technology, creation of beliefs and practices? What are the new philosophical explanations, and what are the doctrines and proverbs and the values they have developed out of this chain of making and unmaking of human worldviews? And this is the worldview framework that I have developed. Worldview components: cognitive component, affective component, evaluative component. These three components are already explained by Professor Paul Hebert, Indian-born anthropologist, but his parents are from America, and he knows the American culture and the Indian culture as well. And he developed the cognitive, affective, and evaluative aspects of the worldview, domains of the worldview, whereas the capability resources and the reflective and conscientious resources, these two things are my additions to explain how the worldview actually, what are the components of worldview, how different cognitive domain and affective domain, evaluative domain, and capability domain, these things are interact with each other, how the whole worldview crisis is being addressed. Those things are really, yeah. So I have already explained that what is cognitive and affective and evaluative, but the capability resources. What are the this famous anthropologist Taylor's definition, capabilities, acquired capability. That what are the acquired capabilities to not only to frame questions, to articulate their discomforts, but also to find out the solutions for the existing problems. And what are the competencies? What are the creative, reflective, and what are their capability? Adapting, operating, and sustaining, and service delivery. What are their moral capability, moral competencies or performance competencies? What are their attitudinal competencies? What are their emotional competencies? The emotions that they developed, and all those competencies, resources that really we should develop uh, uh, questions or tools to map the competencies of the people. What are their acquired competencies, and what are the processes involved in it? How do they solve their problems? So, and also reflective. This is at the center of the worldview, reflecting carefully. Um, uh, so at the conscientious and reflective domain, people uh, in their deep unconscious level, they undergo the discomforts and the crises and troubles and the gaps. So some people, they suppress those things. Some people, they give specific time to articulate those things, and to identify the categories, and to come up with the questions, to come up with creative solutions. So that is where at each individual, that is the door to um, change, transformation. How do worldview transforms? So at the core, cognitive level, if the ways of thinking, their beliefs, and all those things, when we see at the cognitive domain, the affective domain, and the evaluative domain, worldview is very strong. It is impossible to change the situation of a given people group. For example, in a people group, ethnic group, there is a practice of human sacrifice. So when we discover that, we are shocked. Even governments also fail. Numerous incentives they promise, they implement, try to punish them, and they put them in jail for temporary purpose. Who do human sacrifice, but governments fails. But how, from when we see from the cognitive point of view, effective point of view, evaluative point of view of the local people group, it seems impossible. But at the reflective domain, at the conscientious domain, at the reflective and conscientious domain, at the capability resource, what are the competencies they have acquired? These two domains will give us the enough space for entry strategies, to design the entry strategies for using the anthropological knowledge for application purposes, to bring the positive change at the individual level and the family level, neighborhood or community level, at a wider societal level. The anthropological applications, knowledge, methods, and are going to find out the entry strategies. What are the acceptable ways of entering the community, and those acceptable ways and the open doors, where are they? They are here at the reflective and conscientious domain. How do they think about the ongoing crisis? What are the patterns of crisis of the worldview? Those things we need to discover. To discover the crisis of, means, for example, hunger, for example, disease, for example, the exploitation, inequalities, disparities, or poverty, their inner crisis, how to over, because each person's have aspirations. At the same time, they have developed prescribed attitudes, and at the same time, they have a given belief system. So among all these beliefs, system of beliefs, system of attitude, set of attitudes and norms and sanctions, amidst of all these things, still there is a soft corner, the open door for people are waiting for good experiences. People are waiting for comfort. People are waiting for thing that can be trusted, and so that their lives can be entrusted to improve their living standards, the quality of life, or the better future, and security, and good health. And they want to also have the benefits of development. All these things, their inner aspirations, or their inner curiosity, inner creativity, inner reflection, careful observation, and looking for ways to solve the problems. Those things are there deep inside. Unless we develop the rapport with the local people, unless we understand what are their ways of thinking, what are their ways of feeling, and what are their ways of judgments, and what are the ways they acquire the required competencies, and how do they reflect on the existing ongoing issues or problems and challenges and pressures and discomforts. And when we after developing rapport, after entering the community, and after trying to understand their worldview domains, and mapping the worldview, then finally figuring out their seeking behavior, and what exactly are the questions they are seeking the meaning for, what kind of meanings they are seeking for, and what are the patterns of their reflection, what is happening at the conscientious level. So that's where an applied anthropologist is really interested, because he wants to bring all these ethnographic description, explanation, knowledge, construct the anthropological knowledge, create knowledge, and but fail to apply and fail to create wisdom to address the human issues and problems, contemporary issues and problems. So anthropologists, that's why International Institute of Anthropological Applications is calling for creating wisdom. Come, let us create wisdom. We have created anthropological knowledge, very good, but we should not stop there. No full stop, only comma. After that, we have moved further. Let us create wisdom by applying the anthropological methods and knowledge and strategies, and let us discover the crisis of the human worldview, and where the change is accommodated and change is invited, and aspirations are aroused, and their needs are emotional needs which are unaddressed, and the intellectual needs which are suppressed, and the evaluative needs that are misguided by the existing worldview, and what are the universally acceptable um, value system, and what are the attitudes and values, and what are the kind of the laws that promises humans a better future, peaceful social coexistence, how to achieve it. Those are the things in a pluralistic society like us in India, we need to really try to understand the worldview of the different people. So there are anthropological survey of India. They have identified around 4,635 people groups in India. So that means that 4,635 worldviews, different worldviews. Some parts of some domains may be overlapping, but each people group have its own worldview, different culture. So need is huge. Who will cater these worldview crisis needs? How to address this worldview crisis? What are the ongoing struggle in a given people group? that is we are going to address. And when we go next slide here, how to understand the core reflective and conscientious domain. What are the factors that work at that deeper level, at the deep of the worldview? I came up with this reflective and conscientious domain. So affectional factors and contingency factors. For example, the pestilence that we are undergoing, the present world is undergoing, this COVID-19. There's a contingency factor, crisis factor, crisis that happens due to the ongoing pestilence. Whereas affectional factors, the feelings, how the human social relations are broken, how their feelings are hurt and disturbed due to the ongoing, so affectional factors. Driving factors, what drives us, what are the driving factors in the sense, what motivates people to serve the patients, and what motivates people to take risk, and what motivates people to accomplish things, the driving factors, and what are the factors of discomfort. So in the face of affectional factors, where do people get love and affection? Where do people get hatred and jealousy? Where do people get deeply, their feelings are disturbed and hurt? And so the affectional factors means the feelings that are the emotions they encounter with from others and shared with others. So those factors have a direct effect on the reflective and conscientious domain, and they contribute for the positive, either positive or negative changes taken at this level, at this domain. Whereas driving factors, their aspirations, somehow I should live, somehow I should save my family, somehow I should get the job, somehow I should earn money. But the moral competencies come in between and make them responsible, respectful, and they're productive, and they take cultivate the competency of integrity, honesty, and they develop the competency of trustworthiness and truthfulness. All these why people acquire that kind of competence, what drives them to acquire that kind of competencies, what gives them the kind of self-image they have, what kind of image they have about self-image, what is the kind of image they want to have about themselves. And that's where the aspirations serve as a driving factors. And also what are their motivations, kind of thing. So what are their dreams, what are their calculations, what are their plans, how do they what are their vision, and how they are motivated, why they are motivated, the way they are motivated. These comes under driving factors. These are change facilitators, affectional factors, contingency factors, and driving factors, and factors of discomfort. At the intellectual level, what are the discomforts? What are the logical contradictions? What are the congruencies they expect, but what are the missing in the congruencies and consistencies where they miss, and all those intellectual discomfort. So at the mind level, at the emotions level, at the feelings level, at the physical comforts. So what are the different sets of comforts or discomforts? So these are the factors, factors of discomfort. Factors of comforts comes under the driving factors. Means because their aspirations take them in their thinking. All their thinking is navigated all together to different horizon, because the driving factor, their aspirations, even though they're born poor, but they think to become a civil servant. Why? They want to serve the poor. Why? They know the power of the poverty, how it crushes people socially, emotionally, physically, and all sorts of life, how they have a devastating experience caused by chronic poverty. So born as a poor person, poor into poverty, suffered chronic poverty, but aspire to overcome poverty and aspire to have a quality education. So the aspirations, when aspirations becomes the motivations, when aspirations become the driving factors, so ethnographer looks into what are the aspirational components of the worldview that drive people for better future, better life, comforts, and dignity, freedom, the autonomy, and all these things. Uh, so so the factors of discomfort, driving factors, and contingency factor, no need to explain because you know. Affectional factors means emotional intelligence, means how self-control, how these um, uh, compassion and care for others, and share love with others and respecting others. So how the feelings of positive or negative or neutral, whatever. So these affectional factors have a direct impact on this reflective and conscientious domain of the worldview. So to understand what happens at the core of the worldview, we need to understand the affectional factors, driving factors, and factors of discomfort, and contingency factors, how these things contribute to the formation of worldview crisis, and how this worldview crisis is addressed, and how people create meanings, and how people from meaning seekers to meaning makers or meaning givers, how do they promote themselves by acquiring the required competencies to overcome the inner struggle, troubling gaps in their worldviews, and based on the experience that they have with the reality, based on they have the trouble with the existing interpretations of the reality, and when they feel the discomfort, then how do they articulate, how do they overcome, how do they come up with the new solutions and new inventions, new ideas, and develop the concepts and formulate things, all these things we understand at this level. But when we look at from cognitive domain, so strong beliefs, strong reasons, strong arguments, everything is strong at the cognitive level. You don't have space. But at the level of the affectional also, they hate, they love, and based on certain given cultural or the worldly prescriptions. The judgments also, they decide, they evaluate which is good, which is bad according to local cultural prescription. I mean, worldview interpretation and prescription. How do their worldview supply the meaning based on which they decide whether which is good, which is bad, which is right, which is wrong, all those things, evaluate the domain. But in these three domains, we cannot negotiate with these worldview. Never ever enter at the cognitive level or at the in the sense affectional domain or evaluative domain. But at the when we come to the worldview crisis, where do they have the troubling gaps? What are the meanings they actually looking for? What is their seeking behavior? So that we need to. So discovering worldview. Human Competencies Framework. I want to summarize. So all my findings, I want to summarize. This framework is developed I have developed this framework, Discovering the Worldview, Human Competencies Framework. So meaning-making competencies. The journey begins with the discomfort, and from discomfort, they start seeking meanings, the meaning-seeking competencies. What is the purpose of life? Why people are living and dying? Who am I? And what is true? What is beautiful? What is good? And why there is evil? Why there are discomforts? How to find forgiveness, deliverance, joy, peace, health, wealth, truth, justice, salvation, or prosperity, whatever. So So they have a numerous sets of questions based on the context specific. So what kind of questions they ask in which context? That context specific meaning seeking behavior we need to map. We need to tap into that area. What are their questions? That's the unspoken questions. That's where a worldview crisis. That's where the open door. That's where entry strategies can be designed and entered safely into the discussions and have a meaningful, productive interactions and interviews to map their worldview crisis. That's where what is their seeking behavior that we need to be very diligent in designing our questions, and we should be very careful and try to be excel in this area. That after that, what is meaning competence, meaning making competencies? How ideas are created, beliefs are framed, traditions are developed, festivals are introduced, and fairs and rituals are organized, and not only organized, introduced. People create rituals. People create fairs and festivals. All these are human creations only. Ideas, beliefs, traditions, festivals, fairs, rituals, customs, sacrifices, hymns, prayers, taboos, mores, doctrines, laws, proverbs, singing, dancing, dressing, art, sports, worship, and philosophy, science, and technology, and new technologies, hermeneutics. All these things are human creations. People started at some point of time, at some in the journey from the barbarian to civilization. So at different stages and phases of the human struggle for survival and flourishment. In the process, people came up with the ideas, beliefs, and all these things are human makeups. It means a human-made ideas, human created, invented those things. So what are the meanings that given by the local given people? So what is the pattern? That's interesting to figure out. And the reflective competences, conscientiousness. So the carefulness, deep thought, philosophical, insightful, meticulous, how careful people are looking at things and how carefully, deeply people are thinking, and what are the ongoing philosophical questions people really ask and meticulously looking into that, and a thorough vision and industriousness, attentiveness, diligent, mindfulness, all these things gives, even though they have evaluative domain, they decide bluntly what is good and what is bad. They act upon it. But when their experiences with the reality and their interpretations of reality differs, I mean, given existing interpretations of reality and their actual experiences with the reality, it clashes. No, that's where people give careful thought. They become careful observers. They ask questions and they give deep thought. Not only asking questions at the meaning-seeking level, they ask questions. At the meaning-making level, they give meanings. But when they are not satisfied with the given meanings and existing meanings, they again they go to reflective and conscientious, where they have a persistence and mindfulness and precision. They look for precision and hunger for veracity, hunger for deep hunger for truth, reality. So that they want to embrace. So that's where the reflective domain, and also aspirations, desires, plans, passions, goals, hopes, wants, needs, calculations, motivations, convictions, inspirations, visions, dreams, decisions. Dream, I mean, not the dream that comes while people are sleeping, but the dream means what are the dreams they have for future. So kind of thing. So approaches and strategies. So these aspirational competencies gives the momentum for this reflective domain to look for new meanings and new better these things by applying the core human capabilities. There is a capability of adapting, operating, strategic, and sustaining. Sustaining means conflict resolution and peacemaking, and also to have a harmony and unity in the society. That's a sustaining competence. The leadership, that's where leadership comes in. So service delivery competencies. So there are core human competencies, how these new competencies are developed, acquired, and exercised and applied in real life situations to address the issues they come across. And so these meaning seek the human competencies framework. When an ethnographer enters the fieldwork, an anthropologist enters the fieldwork to do his ethnography, fieldwork and writing about the culture. And uh, so, what are the things, better things he can look for, where to focus, and to draw to map their meaning-seeking competencies, meaning-making competencies, reflective competencies, and aspirational competencies, and how in midst of this inner struggle, what are the competencies they have acquired, and how they're making and creating new things. And so all these things can be explained. Cycle of worldview formation, set of experiences and discomforts give rise to set of questions, and set of questions um, uh, leads to set of meanings sought for, and meaning givers and interpreters and meaning makers are there. So some meanings are given. Again, when people, when they become discomfort with the given existing meanings, so they again go for raising the meaningful questions. And this cycle of worldview formation goes on and on. So how to map the meaning-seeking resources, meaning-seeking competencies? So set up discomforts at the level of physical level. What are the discomforts they have? Psychological level, what are the discomforts they have? Social relational level, at what are the discomforts they have? Or at the economic level, political level, cultural, moral, and spiritual. What are the discomforts they can categorize? They can explain. They can describe. Because as ethnographers, we want to see how people explains the things uh, the way they explain. So what are the local people given in the given cultural context? So what are the physical comforts, discomforts, and psychological, social, economical, political, cultural, and all these moral, spiritual things. So how mapping their discomforts, mapping their questions, serious attention is need to be given to the questions asked by the local people. We are busy with asking our own questions to, as ethnographers, to discover, to find out their meaning. But what are the local people uh, asking questions? For where do they seek meanings? And, how do they find meanings? And what kind of meanings they are seeking for? What are the standards they are expecting for? What are the future they are speculating and aspiring for? All those things are the questions of the local people. Why discomforts? How long should we suffer? How to solve and where to go to solve this problem? Whom to help? Who will help? Whom to meet? What are the methods and that needs to apply? All those things that local people are searching for. Already there in the serious searching business is happening, but outwardly these things will not happen visible, but implicitly these things are not explicit. These things are implicit. Sometimes their belief system articulates what exactly they are looking for. There also we can get some clues about their seeking behavior. But anyway, in the discomforts, we can really get to the core of the actual set of questions they're asking for. And after that, set of meanings they're seeking for. Healing, fertility, protection, peace, equality, respect, progress, wealth, justice, sustainability, celebrate and rejoice, and happiness, and purity, good, deliverance, delight, status, and power. What are they seeking for actually? What are the set of meanings they are seeking for? So these are the areas an ethnographer would be very interested to look into to figure out the existing worldview of the given people group, and also how to figure out the entry strategies where anthropological observations, theories and methods and knowledge and can be applied to address the contemporary issues so that better future and better experiences can be promised by addressing those things, challenges. So this is a very interesting thing. So this is where I stop. Thank you for your patient listening. I have attempted to figure out how I think I attempted to present my framework, Human Competencies Framework, to discover the worldview of the given people group, and also to map the crisis, worldview crisis, and also to map the meaning-seeking behavior and the meaning-making behavior, and also what are the sets of meanings they're looking for. So in the process, we can have a meaningful ethnographic enterprise, and we can really engage our participants meaningfully to articulate their lifestyle and their worldview. Because we are looking for the implicit meanings. Explicit meanings we get from published reports and the creation, the buildings they constructed, the huts, their houses, their harvest, their cropping styles, their visible real material culture we can make out, but the implicit meanings behind the practices, the worldview, substance of the worldview, how the components of worldview, so how the worldview gives the meaning and order in their life, or how do the existing worldview address the challenges, and how do the worldview give explanation for the disease, poverty, whether it is a dangerous explanation or a positive explanation. We are not there to judge, but we are there to promote a positive change and develop, to facilitate development, not to impose, but to facilitate by designing the acceptable entry strategies for the applications of anthropological knowledge and methods um, to comment, to bring people and navigate the situation into the place where people and the development practitioners and people and the governments and policy makers, policy implementers, and international the NGOs or the welfare organizations. All these things can really have a systematic framework which explains and which describes the local worldview and which maps the worldview gaps and troubles and crises, and what are the meanings sought for, why are they looking for. All those things can be comprehensively explained through this framework. So based on my fieldwork, year-long fieldwork, and based on my journeys and interviews with different people groups, and I came up with this kind of framework. Thank you so much. So now, if you have any questions, because yeah, we are offering digital training in digital ethnography for sustainable tribal livelihoods. So when we approach a tribal group, so what are the questions we need to ask, and how to the sustainable development which we promise, how will they look at it? Will they keep it? Will they get organized? How, if at all they are willing, what are the areas that we can really facilitate to accept the kind of sustainable development that a development organization or agency wants to really facilitate for their benefit. So as an ethnographer, we approach the people, then these are the things we want to look and map and come up with the solutions. Thank you. I request our participants to um, ask any question or.
Yes, I think the participants should react. What do they understand? And I have seen a great labor has gone because preparation of such 41 slide and study of so many material and presentation in a very, very lucid way it was. Really, I was listening to it very patiently. So I think now the participants should react. And I have only one thing which comes often in my classroom, that if somebody is telling about any topic, different views, which is the richness of anthropology. That is the anthropological approach, that for the worldview also, you find so many definitions and so many ways how rich it is. So here I say, now my student will get confused which definition they should follow. That is my problem about the worldview.
Yeah.
Now let the student, teacher, participant, please comment. Which worldview definition should follow?
Sir, Shankaran here, sir.
Hey, hello, how are you?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar, sir. Namaskar, sir.
You are very active all the time. I'm very glad to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anthropology has been a passion to me, sir, always.
Yeah.
Always has been. Sir, about the worldview which Pedarattaiah sir, respected Pedarattaiah sir spoke. He spoke about the idea that when we speak about worldview, it is offered by the culture, especially it is an agency of culture. But still, it is important that when we speak about a worldview, is it important to criticize our own ethnocentric prejudices, or at the end of the day compromise within a culture? Because sometimes a culture does have its own persecutions, does have its own methods of resisting any form of change or broadening also. So worldview, it's like when we speak about worldview, not every culture gives a secure or a safe area for its own acceptable members to deviate the idea or broaden the horizon of worldview in an ideal level. And in the real space, the deviance can be punished also. So sometimes we need to also speak about that worldview is it in a safe arena, or is it in a secure arena? Actually, for example, if honor killing is practiced in a culture, and amidst the worldview, the implicit idea of a worldview would be what we said, the discrimination, and the ethnocentrism would be the implicit idea of the worldview actually. And this thing has to be taken into consideration to see whether a culture is really safer or secure for the man and the woman equally, I could say. And worldview, I support the idea that it is important to really criticize the prejudices and to criticize the ethnocentrism within the culture. But how far is it practical for many people around it is a very important what we say, very important reality. It's a very important reality actually to look at. Actually, the nature of reality is different actually if you look into it. Sir?
Yes. Thank you for
anybody. Anybody? Yes, we have to also conclude. Thank you so much. 1 minute, I have got an urgent call. Let me attend it. হ্যাঁ শিবরাম বলো। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আর আসার সময় না দেখো এই কিছু সবজি যদি পাও বা ক্যাম্পাসে থাকে, হ্যাঁ, আর একটু 200 গ্রাম টক দই, 200 গ্রাম টক দই, ঠিক আছে।
Yeah, I want to respond to Shankaran's
please.
this thing.
Yeah,
so
that'd be good.
He has quoted one example from in our Indian societal context, honor killing. The worldview based on it is a worldview stuff. Implicitly, that disparities and existing gaps in their cognitive level, they think that certain caste group is inferior to them. So having marital alliances with the inferior caste will be a violation. So at the cognitive level, because we have just had a 2 hours presentation on the Human Competencies Framework of understanding the worldview and where to enter, because to facilitate the required change. So that based on that, I want to address this issue of honor killing. So thank you, Shankar, for asking that question. Let me take you to the cognitive level. At the cognitive level, they think that they believe that certain castes are lower to inferior to them, certain castes are pure and certain castes are impure. So marital alliances between impure and pure castes will create they result in honor killings. So that is their cognitive level. And at the evaluative level also, based on that belief, based on the values are prescribed. So based on that value, even death is preferred in the face of violating the caste practices and their beliefs. So they, at that level, evaluative level, they choose the death of their daughter or son because he violated their cognitive and affectional. At the affectional level, they hate the other castes which are inferior. So at the affection level, hatredness is built. At the cognitive level, the argument and logic is provided why they hate. At the evaluative level, why they decided even to kill their daughter or son, so is explained. This is the hardcore, hard part of the worldview. But at the same time, at the soft part of the worldview, if what is the crisis they have? On the one hand, everybody is human, and everybody seek respect and dignity. And when come to us, we want to be respected, honored, kind of thing. But why I have killed my daughter or my son? That in reality, when facing the reality, that's where real questions comes up. After they killed their daughter, the real questions, within the family, they struggle, but they're unexpressed. In the deeper level of their worldview, the crisis happens. Oh my God, I miss my daughter a lot. So I cannot accommodate this kind of this thing. So then we need to undertake a survey or research on the parents who killed their daughters or sons because of this intercaste marital marriages happen. So that's where we map their worldview crisis. How do they feel? They feel the same way, but when facing with the reality of missing their daughter or son for whom they are living, for whom they have worked hard, so hard to create assets for them. When the very daughter is missing, very daughter they have killed, when they miss that, how do they really cope up with that kind of situation in their absence? So that's where reflective domain comes up and pops up, and they seek meanings. They also try to come up with some new meanings. Those are the areas we need to undertake anthropological research, and their seeking behavior can be mapped, and their new meanings which they can give in the absence of their daughters or sons, which they have killed themselves. That's where we have a rich ethnography can be undertaken, and those worldview crisis, what these people are saying when they face the reality of missing their own daughters or sons, and what is the message they want to communicate to the world after that post event. happen. So that's where we need to probe, and we need to come up with these things. Some interesting and important insights will come up with if we undertake this kind of issue-based research. The International Institute of Anthropological Applications want to encourage in future issue-based research, so that this is the social problem we have identified. Then what is the anthropological research on that particular issue is informing us. What are the applications that we can develop to solve that issue? Those are the kind of things we want to looking for, training people and send people to undertake ethnographic research and come up with solutions. I hope this gives at least some part of answer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. My dear friends, we had a very good thing. If anybody else has any clarification, question, comment. It seems all are satisfied. It was very good.
Sir,
now we have to,
I want to add up one more thing, sir. I want to add up one more thing, sir.
Yes,
sir, actually, I feel that when we speak about the idea of stigma, when we speak about the idea of stigma or any kind of implicit prejudices or discriminations within the society, sir, we need to also ask what is the approach that we give to an implicit prejudice or practice, actually. Because it is an age-old saying in 1800s only. They say that culture is a tree which has been more grown up by propagation rather than cultivation. It is based on a prejudice of honor rather than a loss of relearning or unlearning things. Actually. So when we speak about the theory of Piri Bourdieu, which speaks about the habitus and the reproduction of inequality, in which Pedarattaiah sir said that making the children into assets or making them into capital, growing them into a cultural capital or human capital, which is a very important thing, sir, actually. So how is inequality really reinterpreted in retrospective way? How is prejudice and stigma being reinterpreted in a retrospective way is also a very important understanding, sir. Was it really a stigma? Though it was given to them as a conception of stigma, as part of life, actually. It was given. Was it really a stigma? When they lose everything, the real criticism starts in the heart and soul. Is it really a stigma? Or was it really part of the human wisdom of love to be developed as part of life, actually?
Good.
And anthropology speaks that universal wisdom in the form of philosophical anthropology or many other understandings, sir. The aesthetic of philosophical anthropology is, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, then thank you very much. I have to leave because there is another assignment and I have to get ready at 6:30. I have got 2 lectures for the university and I have got 15 minutes time. I will have my evening snacks and get ready. So thank you very much. If any hard question for anyone, as I told you, I as a practitioner, I always evaluate what knowledge I am saying, how it will be applied. So on the first day I mentioned there are 2, I can say domain. One is a theoretical discussion, which we have been doing it. Now, what part of theory, which are discussed for nearly 2 hours, what part of the theory will be used for ethnography and how? How is just like a method. That means you pick up this mobile, do this, do this, do this, do this. That is method. But if you say, take the mobile in your hand, now you think how to use it. Now, once you go to the next step, now you think how you are going for the next step. So this is vague. So we must understand that method has to be kind of instruction. Methods are like instruction and discussions are like sharing opinion. We must not get confused. And this is again, I say, as an anthropologist, I have been student anthropology. And since I have been teaching in different disciplines, engineers, development practitioner, medical. So there, if I talk like this, they will laugh at me. But say, tell me what we have to do. If you say you think about it, then I can think. Why should I come to you to learn? So I tell you, we have to improve our science. Anthropology application. Application means what? Take a pen, do like this applied. Or you have a pen, ointment. That is application. So I think we have to discuss about application, and I will share it tomorrow or any day repeatedly. Look, many anthropological theories are applied by non-anthropologists, and they develop method, and then that method is used by anthropologists. I think you have heard the name of Robert Chamber, who has developed method PRA, participatory rural appraisal. So this method is developed by whom? Robert Chamber is not anthropologist, but he studied anthropology at the Sussex. I was there. And they said, oh my God, this interview technique, this participation, what Malinowski has mentioned, we have to develop a method. So first they developed RRA, Rapid Rural Appraisal. That was in 88. And that was by Professor Gordon Conway. He is not anthropologist. So RRA, why I'm saying, my dear friend, we anthropologists should understand how to develop method. So I can tell 10 anthropological methods applied by non-anthropologists, and anthropologists are learning from them the method. You know, in MBA, there is 100 marks paper on organizational behavior. 100 marks on organizational behavior. Another 50 marks, organizational culture. But there, I can show you the book. See, again, this will be reverse. Organizational behavior. This is for 100, I teach in MBA. And whole is method, do like this, do like this, do like this, do like this. So if we want to develop a method, then we have to say, do like this. If this step is complete, then do like this. That is the method application. So we have to think about it, about application of anthropology knowledge. It's very rich anthropology knowledge, I tell you. But it is an ocean, a knowledge of ocean. And you have to pick the pearl out of the ocean. So thank you very much. It was a very good year. It was really the ocean of the knowledge. And I was thinking how hard work he has done. Such a rich thing. Just on the worldview, 2 hours. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Peda. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. I enjoyed. But again, I will tell. From this, the participant has to develop method. Yeah. And that should be scientific. There should be no debate. No, Sankaran is developing method for worldview like this. And Suresh has different, because everyone in democracy, So he'll develop. And Uday, no, he follows not culture of that. He followed Tyler. Oh. And Malinowski, no, he doesn't follow that. Radcliffe Brownmark said, men should not agree. Now, the people could do what I should do. So we have to develop it. Standard method. Understand, Shankaran? We have to develop standard method. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 3. Right? Because if you want to practice, then you have to explain steps. And if you want to discuss, then we can go on talking discussion. So I think until the second day, we must have a two kind of a domain. One for discussion, theories, argument, debate. But other will be very clear instruction for method. No argument on the method, please. If you are doing argument on the method, that means the methods is not standardized yet. If you keep on arguing a method, that means method is not standardized, and the world will look for a standard method. That is the challenge. Think on that. Okay then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor S.B. Rai, sir, for your valuable time. Thank you, Professor S.B. Rai, sir, for your valuable time.
I enjoy. You told me, and I have to, as a short, but to say, as you have promised, yes, I will get. Yes, Suresh, you're saying something. You want to say something? Whether we should continue method as a part of debate, or we should have a standard method which the world will follow it. That is the question. Should we continue method as a debate? According to him this, according to him this, according to him this. How long? 100 years gone. Anthropologists could not standard develop method. And Robert Chamber will do. Organizers behavior, other will do. You know, you look on the organization culture on internet. Organization culture is taught in MBA because master, they have to practice it in hospital. Marketing, they have to practice organization culture. And you will not find many anthropology of the organization culture. All MBA, there are more than 100 MBA college, MBA, Master of Business Administrator, and 100 marks on the organization culture and behavior. And it is not taught by anthropologists. Think on that. Why?
Sir, I have a view, sir, actually. I have a view.
Please.
I feel that, see, the very important thing is that we don't regard our domestic household as part of the fieldwork, sir. Because when we talk about organization culture, sir, first it starts with criticism of our ethnocentrism, which is taught in our culture. And then the idea of misuse of power, the misuse of power in an inhuman level, which is happening in the culture. Yeah. And then proceeding towards the idea of organizing or conducting anything else is possible. Yeah. When we don't regard our own home, as part of the field worker, because we are afraid of being biased and ethnocentric, so we are not including it. We are saying we are just infused into the idea of other culture, but we are not able to understand that we are not able to accept that it all starts from the home. It starts all starts. Right. Yeah. So organization thing.
I agree with you. Yes, it is not that easy. Culture defining method not easy. Yes, that is why it is not done by anthropologists. It's done by management men.
Yes, sir. Yes, defiance is not accepted.
It is very difficult. It is not that easy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very difficult.
Yes, sir.
Because these are mind, philosophy, perception, values. Is a whole philosophical thing. Yes. It is very difficult to concretize. Very difficult. That is why it will not be done by anthropology.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, there is a question posted here in the chat box. Why is it important to understand different worldview?
I don't know. I don't know. I know only one worldview method and I apply it.
It is not about the methods she is asking. It is about why we need to understand others' worldview.
Others' worldview. Why we want to understand?
Yes.
Because if I have to interact with Professor Gadde and I want to work with Professor Gadde and I want to improve the thought of Professor Gadde, then I have to know what is his view. Unless I understand his view, I cannot have a complementary interaction. I will have a debate and discussion. So in order to have a plan, whether there should be computer class in anthropology or not, if 5 professors have 5 different worldviews, the technician will be confused which room he is going to place that. That is why one has to know the worldview of other when you want to plan for other. When I want to plan for the tribal, I have to know the worldview of the tribal in order to implement it. That is why we have to know. Suppose you want to start organic farming. And the tribals, whether they like it or not, we have to know that. You want to have a nursery school for the tribal. So what do the tribal want? Whether they want English medium or Santhali medium. We have to know. When you want a girl's education in the village for the tribal, what do the tribal want? Right? Say corona vaccination. Many Adivasi are not accepting it. Why? Because their worldview that vaccination is dangerous. So when you go for vaccination, you have to know the worldview. It takes $1 million to convince people for the worldview. Very simple. These are the practical things of worldview. There is no argument discussion. Before vaccination, you have to know the worldview. First step. If they don't have agreement with you, then second step, how to change the worldview. Otherwise, some will have vaccination, others will not have no vaccination. So then you can understand the fate of corona. Some people have got vaccination, others will not have vaccination because they have different worldview. And we are fond of talking, encouraging different worldview. Sorry, if mask has to be wear, no question of what is worldview, what is my worldview. You have to wear mask. If your worldview that I have not to wear mask, then change the worldview. Right? If there is a rule that when you're going on motorcycle, you have to wear helmet. Well, my worldview is I have not to wear helmet. Sorry. So we have to know the worldview for plan of action. Now, how would you know which plan of action is correct? That we can discuss. How would you know whether tribal worldview is correct or your worldview is correct? So again, I'm saying, my dear friend, as an anthropologist practitioner, we have to develop a standard method. That is my perception, my worldview. Right? Now, if Professor Gadde says his worldview is that we should not have a standard method of that. Everyone is flexible. They should be given more time to think. So for Dr. Gadde, you do your work, I'll be doing my work because I have to implement it. You are having a luxury of time. You have a luxury of money. But my tribal, they don't have luxury of time. My tribal are very poor. So they need livelihood immediately. So understanding worldview is important when you want to have an agreed plan of action. If two different worldviews are there, then we have to learn how to develop a consensus. We must have a consensus for vaccination. We must have a consensus for education. We must have a consensus of wearing mask. There people will not ask, what is your opinion, wearing mask or not? Understand, Shankaran? So, why we want to understand worldview? Because when we want a common consensus for agreement of plan. Right?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, let the tribal have their own worldview. I will have own worldview. Why spend time in going to know their worldview? Why should I spend time? So that was a very important question. Why should we understand the worldview of others? Only when we want a consensus for agreement for a plan of action. Right?
To predict the reactions of the people under study, to predict whether they will accept or reject the proposals. So they to underscore the reasons for the problems. So worldview gives us the looking glass, the glasses to see the world, how they see the world. So to see their perspectives, their theories of knowledge, and everything, they're at the total picture, big picture of their life, their priorities, their preferences, their visions, their everything. So worldview, without understanding the worldview, if you enter the community, you may have a clash of culture, clash of opinion, clash of many things, and accommodation will be impossible. So understanding culture is very crucial. Why diversity is increasing in the urban societies, even in the rural societies, because of the exposure to the Western values, because of exposure to the media, because of the exposure to many things, multiple realities, multiple values, fluidity, and a lot of change. So without understanding the spouse point of view, if you want to impose many things on her and treat her as a commodity, then she will act into...
My dear friend, we can talk 4 hours. People should have a different worldview, right? But when you are going to catch a flight, you have to follow the boarding rule.
Yes, exactly.
No one is caring for worldview. That is for anthropologists to discuss. But airline will come on the queue. I don't want to know your worldview. Try to understand. We have luxury of time to understand the worldview and research, right? But for application, time is fleeting. Fund is limited. Resource is limited. And if you want to survive, you have to develop a plan of action for survival. As simple as that. And if you have enough luxury of time and money, you can keep on discussing whether we should have or not. So at the airport, you can have a group discussion whether we should have a boarding pass or not, whether we have boarding pass in left hand or right hand side, whether we should keep like this or not. But when you stand in army, salute like this. Left, thousands of feet will left one side. No worldview, understanding. So please try to understand, understanding worldview for what? That was a very brilliant question. So, and that is why this practicing anthropology application is a very challenging. And although it will hurt you and hurt me, the development method will be developed by non-anthropologists. I can tell you 10 methods used for community development, for tribal development, for livelihood, for the climate change, for the pollution. It is not developed by anthropology, but it should be developed by anthropology. I keep on recording. Anthropologists have got luxury of time to think. Yes, and to discuss. But other discipline will come and develop a method, and government will adopt the method and implement it. So my concern, why can't we think of anthropology application? We should. We should. This is very, very important. Anthropologists to think for application. I say it is a rich subject. I told 100 times. And there is importance of conducting research. Research is very important. Any discipline will go with the research and body of knowledge. But that is one domain. Developing new body of knowledge, developing method and research is one aspect. When you come to application, is a very different way of life. So don't mix it up. Right?
Sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Because I understand the pain when anthropologists not engaged in development work, when the world is missing the benefits from the anthropology. I can feel the ache, pain. So that's why IIAA, International Institute of Anthropological Applications, is created and spreading the anthropological application worldwide. That is very
important. It's a very important.
Yeah.
And I tell you, all the doctors are not researchers. All the engineers are not researchers in engineering. Right? All the businessmen are not researchers on the economics. So research is one domain. Please try to understand. So anthropological research is very important. Developing body of knowledge is very important. But when you come to the practicing of knowledge, then you have to have a standard method. Time, candid, no debate. You must say, do this, do this, do this, do this, like that. And that takes time for anthropologists. You know why? Because we are also having culture of anthropologists. And anthropologists have got their own worldview. So it is difficult to change the culture. Right? Okay then. Anthropologist worldview, anthropologist culture.
Sir, you are an anthropologist. You are engaged in development.
Yes.
So you are
an anthropologist. I am anthropologist, student of anthropology, but I am not practicing anthropology. I am practicing development.
So you are a practitioner.
I am using anthropology theory. I can tell. I am using anthropology theory for development. I can tell.
Excellent.
Yeah. Excellent. I study anthropology. I am a student of anthropology. But I am not teaching anthropology. I am not teaching anthropology. I teach development.
And you are practicing.
I am using anthropology in theory.
Yeah.
I am using anthropology theory.
Wonderful.
But I'm not teaching anthropology.
You are applying the anthropological insights for development.
Yes, I'm applying anthropological theory. Yeah.
Excellent. That is what we want, actually. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry they are waiting for me. Okay. Bye, my dear friend. Just to conclude, anthropological theory is very rich. Each discipline needs research, new body of knowledge. And that is why the subject will grow. That's very important. But if you want to go for development, then you have to have a standard method. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. There, you cannot have a debate. We'll do this or not. We'll have boarding pass or not boarding pass. We'll have check-in first or security first. No, we must have a debate. How can we have a general? No, we cannot. Please remember that. So these two things are very different. Okay then.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
so much.
Okay. Bye.
Thank
you, Suresh. Kasha Somara, Sankara.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
that Kesam has asked why these worldviews are important to understand of others. No, because the worldview serves as a constitution, how to run the society, how to run the government, how to run the Supreme Courts, and how to run the entire social systems. So the constitution of a country, constitution is how much important. Without knowing the constitution, without knowing the laws of the land, once we enter the land, so we will have enough troubles. So why we need to understand others' worldview means to understand their constitution on what they are functioning. So their functional principles and their how their nature is, what are the principles of their nature, what are their acquired competencies, and how do they solve their problems, and what are their explanations, what are the gaps existing, what are the contributing factors to the problems, what are the contributing problems that they give a devastating experience to them. So to understand all those things, what are the rules, laws operating behind the story? So behind the screens, between the lines, what is the meaning conveyed, and what are the struggles undergone, and what are the people looking for? So without understanding that hidden stuff, that cultural grammar, that the constitution of human behavior, how to interact with them, how to have a productive meetings with them, impossible. So understanding worldview of the spouse, of the parents, of the teachers, of the institutions, of the governments, of the society, discovering the worldview is the secret of this strategizing the successful strategies and implementing. So without the proper understanding of the worldview of the individual or the society, development, engaging in development will not be fruitful. That will not give satisfaction and expected results. So I hope you understand. So it is the constitution of the human lifestyle. So that implicit constitution we are trying to discover. For that, we have developed the framework. Frameworks or theories are evolving as we struggle, continue to struggle and be creative and in designing and developing something new to address the problem systematically and to solve the problem 100%. So it is in the process. We should not be frustrated with the process. We should not be discouraged by the existing gaps in the discipline or else, but we don't waste time in that areas. We are planned, focused in understanding what are the gaps, what are the worldview crises, so that what are the strategies need to be developed, how they are going to be implemented in an acceptable way and in a productive way. That's where the presentation goes. Why this worldview, the story is narrated and explained and framework is presented to you. It is with a purpose. We are going to study the digital worlds and digital life. So digital ethnography in the next session of mine. So I will be taking sessions. So Professor S.B. Roy sir will be taking a session also on the Saturdays. And in the week days, I will be taking session on digital ethnography and the principles and practices. What are the methods, bundle of methods that we implement in ethnographic, doing ethnography? What are the different methods we implement? How do we design the research design? How to design the research problem and how to implement it, how to collect, what are the principles of methods of data collection with much clarity and good explanation. We will try to come before you so that you will be equipped to do the productive ethnographic engagement, so that at the end of this training, you will be given sufficient time for field work and to do the ethnography. During this training program, you will be equipped to come up with research, to design your own research problem, and the research tools and the questions, all those things you will be equipped to come up, and you will be given sufficient time, maybe 2 or 3 months time to do field work and come back and report draft and submit your dissertation kind of thing. So that we are going to publish it. The outcome of this training program is going to be ethnographic, digital ethnographic training for development of tribals and non-tribals. So it does not matter. So we are more concerned about development of all people groups, particularly tribals, because they need immediately the benefits of the development. So which our Professor Aspirational is excellent and excelling in that area. So we have intentionally requested him to present the stories from different parts of the country, which will enrich our participants with how people, anthropologists, are engaged in this creating and facilitating and implementing sustainable livelihoods for the needy tribals. At the same time, you will be equipped thoroughly in the doing digital ethnography, because the future of all the disciplines, the future of the world is much more linked, inseparable part of with the digital life. So for that, you will be equipped thoroughly. That is our aim of this course. After that, you will be sent to the field work in your comfortable area and with where you have access. And you yourself will be equipped to design the research problem. Then you will go and undertake the ethnography, digital ethnography. After that, you will be enabled to analyze the data, interpret the data, and organize the data. And we will together will put all the chapter after chapter, person after person, come together and publish a book. That will be the outcome of this training, equipped with the required competencies for the professional empowerment at the same time, and helping you do it and accomplish it and publish it. That is the total ethnographic picture. No, ethnography means doing fieldwork and interpreting the data, organizing the data, analyzing the data, and publishing, writing the culture and publishing it. At the level of publishing, the ethnography is completed. So you will be trained in the digital ethnography principles and practices. And then what are the plethora of different areas that this internet and the digital life, digital world has brought, and what are the opportunities, what are the possibilities for anthropologists to be engaged in to not only to teach digital anthropology, virtual anthropology, but also doing digital ethnography. That is the task, major task of this thing. Means ultimately we will be applying this digital ethnography for some aspect of development for the community, for the society at the end. Thank you, dear all respected honorable participants. It is encouraging, even though many of our friends are not participated. In future, I think they will participate so that we will have productive interactions. And because this slowly going deeper, and I don't want any one of you miss the sessions. And because next session I will be introducing the ethnographic methods and also the difference between traditional ethnography and the virtual digital ethnography. And slowly we will be defining the terms and glossary and the acquainted with the key concepts and theories, and also going deeper and deeper step by step so that we will be highly professional. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Glad to see you people.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. With your kind permission, I'm going to end the meeting.
Okay.